Every year, I find myself scrolling through new releases, looking for that feeling. You know the one, where you finish a game and just sit there for a moment, staring at the credits, not quite ready to leave that world yet. But somewhere along the way, the industry stopped making games that end. Everything has a season pass now, a roadmap, a reason to keep you logged in. Not on my watch. Every game on this list is done, finished. No patches coming, no battle pass, no $20 skins. Just a world someone built from start to finish. Dishonored gives you a mission, a target, a location, and then it just steps back. The entire game is built around a single question. How do you want to solve this? And what makes it remarkable is that the game genuinely doesn't care. You can kill everyone in the building, or you can finish the whole mission without a single body hitting the floor. But the most interesting thing about Dishonored isn't the freedom, it's the consequences. There's a chaos system running quietly in the background, tracking every life you take. Play violent, and the city of Dunwall responds. More plague rats in the streets, more guards, darker skies. The city itself deteriorates around your choices. Play as a ghost, and there's almost a melancholy to it. Civilians going about their lives, completely unaware that someone slipped through their world like a shadow. In Corvo, the main character, he never speaks, not once. In 2012, that felt like a limitation. Looking back, it was a choice. You are Corvo. His silence is yours. 14 years old, and nothing has quite replaced it.
Down!
You're using kids now. Now I got this tiny engine boy.
Let's be honest about BioShock Infinite. The combat is its weakest part. The special powers you collect never quite get as creative as they should, and most fights end up feeling like basic cover shooting. That's worth knowing going in, but BioShock Infinite might be one of the most extraordinary acts of world building in gaming history, and that carries it further than good combat ever could. Columbia is a city in the sky, built on national pride, false religion, and brutal class divide, and the details are staggering. A barbershop quartet performing a 1912 arrangement of a song that won't exist for another 70 years. A museum that glorifies a massacre as a heroic founding moment. An entire underclass living literally beneath the clouds that the people above pretend doesn't exist. And then there's Elizabeth, your companion for most of the game, who is one of the best written AI companions in the medium. She never feels like someone you have to babysit. She feels like a person. The story goes somewhere genuinely ambitious in its final act. Whether it sticks the landing is a conversation worth having, but the world it builds to get there, you won't forget it.
Good to see you. Perfect day for the celebration.
The original Resident Evil 2 came out in 1998. It was terrifying then and genuinely difficult to go back to now. So when Capcom remade it in 2019, they didn't just update the graphics, they rethought what makes horror games work from the ground up. The inventory system alone is worth talking about. You have a briefcase with a fixed grid and every item takes up physical space. A shotgun is longer than a pistol. A healing item takes up 1 square. A key you no longer need is still sitting there eating up room. Every time you open that inventory, you're making decisions. What stays, what gets left behind, what do you risk not having when you need it most? It creates this constant low-level anxiety that never goes away. And then there's Mr. X, an 8-foot-tall, unstoppable pursuer with no set patrol route who simply hunts you through the entire police station. You can hear his footsteps through the ceiling while you're trying to solve a puzzle. You can't stop him, you can't predict him. You can only run and hope. Capcom proved in 2019 that you can take a 26-year-old game, understand exactly what made it special, and build something that feels completely new. Metal Gear Solid 5 gives you a military base and asks you one simple question. How do you want to take it? You can go in guns blazing, you can crawl through the grass for 20 minutes and knock out every single guard without being seen. You can call in a supply drop to cause a distraction, sneak in through the back, grab the one person you came for, strap a balloon to them, and watch them get lifted silently into the sky while the guards are still looking the other way. That last one is a real thing you can do. The game is built around this massive toy box of tools and approaches, and the satisfaction comes from stringing them together in ways the game never explicitly taught you. The main base you operate from grows as you play. You're building a private military, recruiting soldiers from the field, developing new weapons and equipment between missions. It gives the whole thing a sense of momentum that very few games manage to pull off. Now, the ending. It's unfinished. That's not an opinion, it's a documented fact. The story runs out of steam before the credits roll, and there are missions that were clearly cut. It's worth knowing before you go in. But the moment-to-moment gameplay, the pure act of playing Metal Gear Solid 5, is some of the finest game design of the last 20 years. The ending doesn't take that away. Bloodborne is going to kill you, repeatedly, in humiliating ways. A basic enemy in the first area will kill you your first time through, and the game will offer you absolutely no explanation for why or what you should have done differently. That's not a bug, that's the entire point. Bloodborne is a game about learning through failure, and the feeling you get when something that destroyed you 10 times suddenly goes down on the first attempt is unlike anything else in gaming. The mechanics reward aggression in a way that feels completely unique. Most games tell you to dodge away from danger and heal when it's safe. Bloodborne tells you to run toward it. If an enemy hits you, you have a small window to hit them back and actually recover a portion of that health. Sitting back and playing it safe will get you killed faster than being bold. It completely rewires how you think about combat. The weapons transform. A sword that fights like a cane in one form unfolds into a completely different weapon with different range and timing. Learning when to switch mid-fight becomes its own skill. And then there's the world. The game is set in a Victorian city that is slowly losing its mind. The architecture is gothic and beautiful and wrong in ways that are hard to explain. Streets that don't connect the way they should, buildings that seem larger on the inside than the outside. The story is almost entirely hidden in item descriptions and environmental details. You piece it together yourself, and what you find is genuinely unsettling. There were online communities that have spent 10 years dissecting this game's lore and are still finding new things. That kind of depth doesn't happen by accident. Skyrim came out in 2011 and has been re-released so many times since that it has become a running joke. It's on everything. It's probably on your microwave. But here's the thing. There's a reason Bethesda keeps selling it and a reason people keep buying it. And that reason is that no game before or since has nailed that specific feeling of opening a map, seeing a distant mountain, and just walking toward it with no particular plan. You are a Dragonborn, someone with the innate ability to absorb the power of dragons by defeating them. That premise sounds ridiculous, and the main story is honestly not the reason you're here. You're here because you will spend 4 hours helping a town with a problem, get distracted by a dungeon on the way back, emerge 2 hours later with a sword you don't understand, follow a stranger to a city you've never been to, and completely forget what you were originally doing. Skyrim is the only game that consistently makes you feel like you're living inside a world, rather than playing through one. 14 years old, ugly by modern standards, and it still does something no modern open world game has managed to replicate.
So I can take this stuff.
Most horror games give you a monster and a way to deal with it. A weapon, a pattern to memorize, a weakness to exploit. Alien Isolation gives you a monster and absolutely nothing else. The alien that stalks you through Sevastopol Station cannot be killed. It cannot be reasoned with, it cannot be cheesed with a trick you found online, because it learns. It actually adapts to your behavior over the course of the game. If you keep hiding in lockers, it starts checking lockers. If you keep using your motion tracker, it starts hunting the sound of your motion tracker. The game is essentially a 10-hour exercise in sustained dread, and it is the most faithful adaptation of the original 1979 film that has ever been made. The art direction deserves special mention. The technology in the game looks exactly like the technology in the movie. Not modern sci-fi sleek, chunky, analog. Screens with green text and physical toggle switches and computers that look like they belong in a 1970s vision of the future. Every room feels like a set that Ridley Scott could have walked onto. It is a long game, and there are sections in the middle that drag. But when Alien Isolation is firing on all cylinders, nothing else comes close to what it does.
Kill him.
Before Arkham City, superhero games were mostly a bad joke. Licensed cash grabs with no ambition and no respect for the source material. Arkham City changed that conversation permanently. The combat flows between enemies in a rhythm that makes you feel genuinely dangerous, and it escalates beautifully. Early on, you're fighting 3 guys. By the end, you're juggling 20, each requiring a different response. Armored enemies need to be stunned first. Knife wielders need to be vaulted over. Shield carriers need to be disarmed. The game layers these in gradually until managing all of them simultaneously feels completely natural. But beyond the combat, this game treats Batman as a real character.
Surprise!
Don't worry about me. You're needed out there.
The voice cast is the legendary animated series cast. Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill in what he called his final performance as the Joker, and the writing respects both of them. One side mission involving a villain called Zass and a series of ringing payphones is more unsettling than most dedicated horror games manage. PC players should look up a performance guide before jumping in, but as a superhero fantasy that actually takes its characters seriously, nothing has beaten it. The Witcher 3 ruined open-world games, not because it killed the genre, but because it set a standard that almost nothing has matched in the 10 years since. You play as Geralt, a monster hunter for hire in a world perpetually at war with itself. Before a big fight, you're expected to research what you're hunting, craft the right blade coating, brew a potion that gives you an edge. It sounds like homework, but it makes every major encounter feel like a proper hunt, rather than just a bigger health bar to deplete. And then there's the writing. Every side quest, every contract, every stranger on the road has a story worth hearing. There is a side quest involving a haunted house that is better written than the main story of most games released that year. The world remembers your choices in ways you don't see coming until much later. A decision you made thinking it was small comes back an hour later with consequences the game never warned you about. The 2 expansion packs, Blood and Wine especially, are each the size of a full game and arguably better than most of them. If you've never played The Witcher 3, you have one of the great first-time experiences in gaming still ahead of you. That is not a small thing. Max Payne 3 is the most overlooked game on this entire list, and it isn't particularly close. The gameplay is built around bullet time. You slow the action, dive through the air, and direct every shot with a precision that makes firefights feel like you're directing an action movie. Every dive is fully physical. You tumble down staircases, crash through windows, land on your back, and finish the shot from the floor. The game commits to that position. You're on the ground, you have to get up, and that moment of getting up can get you killed. There's also a last stand mechanic. The moment you take a fatal hit, time slows and you have one final chance to kill whoever shot you before you actually die. It creates these extraordinary last-second moments that feel completely unscripted, like the game is generating a highlight reel just for you. But the real reason to play is Max himself, a middle-aged man drinking himself to death in Sao Paulo, completely aware he is the architect of his own misery, unable to stop anyway. He is one of the most honest portraits of self-destruction that gaming has ever put to screen. The cutscenes blur into gameplay with no loading screens. A shootout freezes mid-bullet as the scene transitions, and when it unfreezes, you're in control. It respects your time in ways that feel almost radical. 12 years later, it sits at around $15 on sale. Worth 10 times that. And that's the list. 10 games, no battle passes, no live service, no $80 price tag. Just good stories, great worlds, and the kind of experiences that remind you why you started playing games in the first place. I'm building this channel into a home for games that actually respect the player. So if that's your vibe, hit subscribe and join us. And if there's a game you think deserves to be on this list that I missed, I genuinely want to know. See you in the next one.